In this episode, we are moving into a topic that sounds simple enough on the surface, but turns out to be one of the most important pieces of a real security program. Because organizations do not become safer only by buying tools or writing policies. Information security awareness training is the ongoing effort to help people understand what kinds of security risks exist, why those risks matter, and how everyday choices can either reduce exposure or make the organization more vulnerable. For a brand new learner, it is helpful to see this as a practical business discipline rather than a lecture series about passwords and suspicious emails. Every employee, contractor, manager, and executive interacts with information in some way. And that means people are part of the security environment whether they think of themselves as technical or not. Once you understand that human behavior influences confidentiality, integrity, and availability, security awareness training starts to look less like an optional communication effort and more like a core control that helps people notice risk, respond wisely, and support the organization's larger goals. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to begin is with what awareness training is really trying to accomplish. It is not simply an effort to make employees memorize rules or feel nervous about making mistakes. Its real purpose is to help people recognize situations that carry risk and make better choices when those situations appear during normal work. That includes understanding how to handle sensitive information, how to respond to suspicious messages, how to protect credentials, how to use systems responsibly, and when to report something unusual before it becomes a larger incident. A beginner will sometimes picture training as a once-a-year event completed only to satisfy compliance requirements. But that view is far too narrow. Strong awareness programs aim to influence habits, decision-making, and culture over time. They help people move from passive knowledge to practical judgment so that security becomes part of ordinary work behavior rather than a separate topic that exists only during audits or annual refresher sessions. One reason this matters so much is that many security failures involve people somewhere in the chain of events. A malicious email may succeed because someone clicks too quickly, a sensitive file may be exposed because it is shared carelessly, or a system may be misused because an employee does not understand the consequences of bypassing a process that seemed inconvenient. None of that means people are the problem in a simplistic or blaming sense. It means people operate under pressure, distraction, deadlines, incomplete information, and constant digital communication, so organizations have to prepare them for the environment they actually work in. A risk professional sees this clearly because threats do not enter the organization only through firewalls or servers. They also enter through everyday actions, assumptions, habits, and misunderstandings. Awareness training helps close the gap between policy on paper and behavior in practice by giving employees a better chance of recognizing risk in the moment when it matters. That leads to another important idea, which is that awareness training is not about turning every employee into a security engineer. The goal is not to make accountants, nurses, marketers, analysts, or supervisors perform deep technical analysis. The goal is to help them understand their role in protecting information and reducing avoidable risk. A person who knows how to pause before opening a suspicious attachment, verify an unusual payment request, protect customer information, or report a lost device is already contributing meaningfully to security. This is why good awareness training respects the learner's actual job and decision environment. It teaches people what they need to notice, what actions are expected, and what warning signs deserve extra attention. For beginners, this is a useful correction because security culture improves not when every worker becomes highly technical, but when every worker becomes a little more alert, a little more informed, and a little more likely to act responsibly when something does not feel right. Another essential point is that awareness training should be connected to the organization's real risks rather than built from generic advice alone. Many programs fail because they present broad security reminders without tying them to the actual data, systems, processes, and threats employees deal with every day. A hospital may need stronger emphasis on patient information handling and operational continuity. A financial firm may focus heavily on fraud and data protection, and a manufacturer may need employees to understand the connection between technology security and production disruption. A generic message may sound fine, but people learn better when they can see how security affects the work they perform, the customers they serve, and the consequences the organization could face. This is especially important from a C-risk perspective because risk management is always stronger when it reflects business context. Awareness training becomes much more effective when it is shaped by how the organization actually operates rather than by a list of abstract warnings that employees struggle to connect to daily decisions. It is also important to understand that awareness is only one part of training, even though the two ideas are closely related. Awareness is about recognition, attention, and general understanding of security expectations and common threats. Training goes a step further by helping people know how to respond appropriately in specific situations. A person may be aware that phishing exists, but still need training on what signs to check, how to report a suspicious message, and what to do if a bad link was already clicked. In the same way, employees may be aware that sensitive data must be protected, but still need practical guidance on approved storage methods, secure sharing, document handling, and retention expectations. This distinction matters because organizations sometimes settle for broad messaging without giving people enough help to act correctly. A mature program recognizes that awareness creates attention, but training builds capability. Both are needed if the organization wants employees to move beyond vague caution and toward reliable, repeatable behavior. The design of the program matters a great deal because people do not learn well from dense, generic material that feels disconnected from their jobs. Effective awareness training is clear, relevant, and built around realistic situations that employees can recognize. It should explain not just what the rule is, but why the rule exists and what kind of harm it is meant to prevent. That explanation matters because people are more likely to follow expectations when they understand the logic behind them rather than hearing only a list of restrictions. Good design also respects attention span and timing. Short, focused lessons delivered regularly often work better than long annual sessions that employees rush through and forget. The aim is not to overwhelm people with every possible cyber concept. The aim is to reinforce a manageable set of useful behaviors consistently enough that they become normal parts of working with information, systems, and communication tools across the organization. Audience differences are another major issue because not everyone in the organization faces the same risks or makes the same kinds of decisions. A new employee may need a strong foundation in basic handling practices, identity protection, safe communication, and reporting procedures. A manager may need more guidance on approving access, supporting secure team behavior, and responding when staff report possible incidents. Senior leaders may need to understand business email compromise, decision pressure during crises, and the consequences of poor risk signaling from the top. Technical staff may need deeper training on handling privileged access, administrative responsibilities, and operational security expectations. This is why one-size-fits-all programs often feel weak. They may technically deliver information, but they do not always deliver relevance. Awareness training works best when it recognizes that different roles interact with risk in different ways and therefore need examples, expectations, and reinforcement that match the reality of their responsibilities. Phishing and other forms of social engineering are often central topics in awareness programs because they show clearly how human judgment can either interrupt an attack or allow it to move forward. Social engineering works by manipulating trust, urgency, curiosity, authority, or fear rather than relying only on technical weakness. An attacker may pretend to be a trusted coworker, a vendor, a senior executive, or a service provider in order to pressure someone into sharing information, approving a payment, clicking a link, or bypassing a normal process. What makes this especially important for beginners is that the messages often do not look obviously criminal. They are designed to feel normal enough that a rushed employee might respond without careful review. Awareness training helps by showing common warning signs, reinforcing the importance of verification, and reminding people that urgency can be a manipulation tactic. More importantly, it helps employees understand that slowing down and checking something unusual is not a sign of poor productivity. It is a sign of professional judgment. A strong program also teaches reporting behavior, because even well-trained employees will sometimes make mistakes or encounter situations they cannot fully interpret. Security improves when people know how to raise concerns quickly and without unnecessary fear. If employees believe they will be embarrassed, blamed, or ignored for reporting something suspicious, they may stay silent until a small issue grows into a larger event. That silence can be far more damaging than the original mistake. Good awareness training makes reporting simple, expected, and safe. It explains what kinds of things should be reported, how quickly, through what channels, and why early reporting helps the organization contain harm. This creates an important cultural benefit because it shifts the focus from hiding errors to learning from them. Foresee risk learners. That is a powerful lesson. A risk-aware culture is not a culture where nobody ever makes a mistake. It is a culture where people are prepared to recognize issues early and communicate them before the damage spreads. Leadership plays a major role in whether awareness training is taken seriously or treated as background noise. Employees pay attention not only to formal lessons, but also to what leaders tolerate, reward, and model through their own behavior. If leaders bypass controls, ignore reporting expectations, or treat security as an obstacle that should be worked around for speed, employees will notice that message very quickly. On the other hand, when leaders participate visibly, follow the same rules, and reinforce that secure behavior is part of professional responsibility, the training gains credibility. This is one reason awareness is closely tied to culture. Culture is not just what an organization says in policy. It is what people learn from repeated signals about what matters. Leadership support helps translate awareness from a required activity into a shared expectation. When employees see that security is respected at the top, they are more likely to believe that reporting concerns, protecting data, and following secure practices are truly part of how the organization expects work to be done. Measurement is another area where organizations often misunderstand awareness training. It is easy to measure who completed a course, but completion alone does not tell you whether behavior improved or whether risk was meaningfully reduced. A stronger program looks for evidence that employees understand expectations, recognize suspicious activity more consistently, report faster, or make fewer preventable handling mistakes over time. That kind of evaluation is harder than simple attendance tracking, but it is much more useful. It helps the organization learn whether the training is changing behavior or merely generating records that prove something was assigned. From a risk management perspective, the goal is not educational activity for its own sake. The goal is risk reduction. If employees continue falling for the same fraud patterns, mishandling the same data types, or missing the same warning signs, then the organization needs to improve the content, timing, delivery, or relevance of the program rather than assuming the problem has been solved because everyone clicked through the material. Several misconceptions can weaken awareness programs if they are not addressed. One is the belief that awareness training is mainly for junior staff, while experienced employees, managers, or executives somehow stand outside the need for reinforcement. In reality, highly trusted or senior individuals are often attractive targets precisely because they have authority, access, or influence. Another misconception is that fear-based messaging creates stronger security behavior. While people do need to understand consequences, constant alarm can create fatigue, disengagement, or shame rather than practical judgment. There is also a common belief that awareness training compensates for weak systems on its own. It does not. Employees should be prepared and informed, but organizations also need sound processes, secure design, access controls, monitoring, and support structures that make good behavior easier. Awareness works best as part of a larger security ecosystem, not as a substitute for it. People need both knowledge and an environment that supports secure choices under real working conditions. When you step back and look at the whole picture, information security awareness training becomes much more than a mandatory learning activity. It is a continuing effort to help people understand risk, recognize suspicious situations, protect information responsibly, and contribute to the organization's resilience through everyday behavior. Strong programs connect training to real business risk, tailor content to roles, reinforce reporting, involve leadership, and measure whether behavior is actually improving rather than merely recording completion. For new learners, the most important takeaway is that security is shaped by people as much as by technology, and awareness training, is one of the clearest ways an organization helps people become part of the defense rather than an unprepared point of exposure. When it is designed well and supported seriously, it strengthens culture, reduces avoidable mistakes, and helps the organization operate with more confidence in a world where many threats still begin by trying to influence a human decision.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.